Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is good. We got some bad weather overnight, and they did not call schools off. So there's like accidents everywhere. Interstates closed. It's a bit crazy. So went to New York this weekend. Told you that yesterday. Something happened there that triggered a kind of an internal thought for me that I wanted to talk about. So while this is a serious topic, I'm going to start with a bit of a joke because what happened was very, very funny. We were in New York in Times Square. If you've seen Times Square on movies and television, it's nothing like that in real life. It's not this massive open area. It's kind of just these two roads cross kind of awkwardly, and so there's a little bit of space, and they just put a million billboards up. The thing that is real there is just the amount of people. It's like mind numbing. When you go 2 blocks away from Times Square, you're not bumping into people. In Times Square, you cannot get anywhere without bumping. It's just wall to wall, and that's in the March in a cold day. It's still packed, and there's all kinds of stuff there. There's people of all sorts doing performances, doing taking pictures, shopping, whatever. That performance thing, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, human statues and guitar playing and magic acts and people dressed up in costume trying to get you to pay to take a picture with them and that sort of stuff. So, as you walk through that area, there are some general things you need to keep in mind. Just don't take anything from it. If somebody tries to hand you something, just walk away. They're trying to give you something and then force you to pay for it. I want you to have this, and then you take it, and they go, okay, it's $10, and you're like, I'm not paying you for this thing. So you just kind of just go. Don't just go. And that's true in kind of any city I've ever been in. There's those people everywhere. So we're walking through Times Square, and where we were and where we were trying to go was kind of through one of these crowds, and instead of going around and trying to go, I just said, I'm going through this crowd. And so Em and my daughter Roland are behind me, and I'm like, I'm just going through this crowd. And so I just start working my way through this crowd. And I'm not really paying attention to my surroundings at all. I'm not, particularly afraid of these kinds of situations. But these dudes trying to hand me something. A young guy, everybody's shorter than me, young guy, he's trying to push something at me, and I'm like, I'm good. He goes past, and then I turn to keep going, and this other dude, bigger guy, kind of my size, pushes this thing at me, and I didn't look. I'm pretty sure it was tickets to something. It was in kind of like a plastic protector, like I think it was tickets to a concert or whatever. Whatever it was, he was trying to hand it to me and then get money from me. And he's like, so he sticks this thing out, and what comes out of his mouth is, "Thank you for not being afraid of black people." It was just like, what? And I was like, he's like, I want to give you this or whatever, and I'm like, I'm good, and I just keep walking, and so in that moment, it was like, I had that thought of, wait, am I supposed to be afraid of black people? Like, is that I don't have that in me. I'm not afraid of black people. I'm not afraid of, Muslims. I'm not afraid of brown people or Asians. I don't have that gene like that, makes me afraid of somebody different to myself. And this isn't to pat myself on the back. It's just how it is, I grew up in a surprisingly diverse area for being in the middle of West Virginia. I've told you before, FAIRMONT, West Virginia has a pretty large black population. We also have a decent amount of South Asian, of Indian and Pakistani. And so there's a good mix of people here. And growing up, I was bullied by people of all sorts of race, color, background. I was bullied probably more heavily by white people than I was any other race. But I was bullied by black people. I was bullied by South Asian people. I was bullied, by men. I was bullied by women. I was bullied by everybody. I was a little quiet kid who liked to read books, so I got bullied a lot. So I have an innate fear, or not necessarily a fear, but an avoidance of aggressive people. So, that doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, whatever. If I see you on the street and you're aggressive and you look like you're just, I'm probably going to avoid you. And that's just, you know, uh, I get those bullying flashbacks. But this particular guy, like, just this, and when he said that, I kind of looked around and realized that there was like a whole group of these guys, like 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, all black guys, all dressed really well, holding these things, trying to hand them to people. And it was just a moment of reflection. Like, am I supposed to be afraid of black people? Is that the standard response to somebody who's visiting New York City, is to be like, oh my God, there's black people? Like, maybe it is. Maybe that is the state of the world, sadly. I mean, I recognize that there is a whole lot of racism still in this world, or a whole lot of prejudice, if not actual, like, straight up racism. And that's sad. But to tie this all back together, I think a thing I realized was, as a kid, this was the 90s when I went to New York. New York was the scary place, not only because it was big and unknown, but it was scary because we had heard in the 80s how terrible gang violence was, drugs, prostitution. You're going to get, murdered if you go to New York. And if you're a tourist, you better stay away from any place that, that where there's no, where you better stand under streetlights and be holding the hand of a police officer. Like, that was the impression that I had of New York as a kid. And so when I went there, everything was terrifying. This time, not at all. I got zero fear from that whole adventure, that whole city. I was cautious, I did not carry my camera out in the open very often. I only did it when I was taking pictures. I did not have a camera bag or anything that was, that denoted, hey, here's something worth stealing. I took a small kind of ratty backpack to be my day pack for traveling around the city. I kept phone and wallet in front pockets. I do that anyway. But, I had some backup cash in a different pocket in case something went wrong. I took standard cautions for any place I would go where there's a lot of tourism, because the people who are the thieves are targeting tourists. They're not targeting the locals. And so I take some precaution. I grew up in an area where there was a decent amount of diversity and not a lot of crime. M, on the other hand, grew up in an area with no diversity. I mean, not none, but very little diversity and a lot of crime. Her area was, poverty and drugs, and so that inspired a lot of thievery. So even here, like, she takes the cautions that I had in New York to, like, the extreme. Like, everything about our house, we don't talk about her on camera. We don't show her. We don't talk about the things that we have here. We don't talk about when we're, Friday, I recorded a video in advance because she doesn't want me saying I'm not going to be home this weekend, right? Which all makes perfect sense. Like, I don't have any issues with any of her concerns about that sort of thing. But it is a very different experience from what I know. The same as the casual or not so casual racism that these black individuals might have faced or might face probably, there's no might about it, 100% face on a daily basis. They face these same kind of injustices daily coming from people who look like me. It just made me really kind of step back and think about how much perspective changes as we age. I am no longer the target of bullying. If anything, I probably bully more often, and it's not intended to be harmful. It's intended, it's a kind of I only bully the people I love kind of thing, right? I'm not bullying people at random, but I'm not afraid of people's thoughts or feelings towards me anymore. I have no whatever, but I'm still, cautious, and I'm still not going to take unnecessary risks. But I didn't feel any moments of any sketchy moments in New York City at all. It all felt just, it was great. It was a great place. These people are all nice, you know? It's a good time. Don't know what all this had to do with anything. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is profligate. It is an adjective meaning extravagant, wasteful activity, expenditures, or indulgences beyond that which any reasonable person would desire. The official account of the church's development viewed alternative voices as expressing the views of a misguided minority, craven followers of contemporary culture, profligate sinners, or worse. Harold Attridge, Dean of Yale University Divinity School. Profligate. Profligate. That's a fun word. I have not heard of that at all. Beyond what a reasonable person would desire. I want a saw stop table saw. Is that being profligate?